Okay, this is, I don't know what this is. All I know is it's October 28th of 2025, okay? So basically what I'm been doing for the last few days is I contacted the trust company that I have this little trust fund for ShaMay, right? And it requires 2 signatures. I already talked about it, okay? It requires Uncle John's signature, Mr. Bernard John Duncan, his signature, and it requires my signature to release $1,300 and give back the federal government their money when it comes to what they deposited into it when John and I first opened it up for ShaMay. Okay? I don't know how much it is, $800, $1,200 or something like that, that needs to go back to the federal government. But that money's on lockdown, whether it goes back to the federal government or whether it comes to me, okay? And because I can't do anything with it, people, because I can't prove that he's dead. I don't have the death certificate, right? Because of what happened with the medical kidnapping of him through his estranged sister, Eleanor Gilding, who works for the province of British Columbia, Canada, as a senior manager to the provincial immunization program for all the healthcare workers. Okay? So she's got seniority because she's been a nurse for over 40 years, and how long she's been in this position for, well, I don't know. I don't know if she's still employed or what. I just know that she's deep in her game when it comes to corruption. Okay? So, I'm going to read this email to you, and I'm going to read you my response, and then he emailed me back, and I'm going to read you my response, because, honestly, I don't know what to do. And then, don't forget, CIBC Bank, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, they got that little quote-unquote trust fund that should be at $98, but I don't know. Like, we're going back as far as 2015, and that one requires John's signature and my signature to release those little funds, right? So the last time I touched base on that account was in April of this year, because they were going to make it go dormant. They were going to shut it down because, I haven't done anything with it. It's just been sitting there. So I had X amount of time to go in there and, do a little deposit to keep it active. So I deposited $5 in there, right? At first they tried to screw me around by letting me do it on the phone through telephone banking. And then I'm thinking, it's all good. Then I get, information that, oh no, you got a very short window of time to, deal with this problem. Otherwise, we're closing the account. And I'm like, to hell with you. That's what you guys want. You want to close that account because you want to hide your dirty secret as to what you've done to my family and Mr. John Bernard Duncan. Or Bernard John Duncan. Okay, so I went to the bank. I deposited $5 into that little account. And it's just still sitting there, but can't do nothing with it. So that's 2 trust accounts, 2 legal documents that require John's signature to release the funds. Okay? Unless I can produce a death certificate, which I can't because of cover-ups. Fraser Health Authority covered up the medical kidnapping of Uncle John in a court of law. CIBC Bank was on that path, trying to cover it up in a court of law and hiding behind a union government worker in a senior position of authority as their excuse to commit fraud so that they could get their kickbacks, whether they came in as bribes or direct payment in terms of who Eleanor Gilding was working with at that time. I'm sure the social workers that were working at the Old Yale temporary care ward, just got an envelope full of cash, maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000 worth to, help to facilitate the medical kidnapping of Uncle John. And then through that process, that's where mail fraud came in, because it was the social workers that kept John in that old Yale Center and manipulated his files to not only hide information from Mr. Duncan John when he wanted to know what was being prescribed to him. They refused to give that information to him when he requested it. They refused to give me that information when I requested it. That's because they were illegally drugging him, right? And they didn't want John or I to see that information, because that's not what they were telling us. They were telling us they were just giving him a calcium pill, but instead they were giving him an oxycontin, okay, whatever, that kind of drug, to sedate him and keep him drowsy at their convenience. So at lunchtime, they'd give him the calcium pill, which was not a calcium pill, so that by 1 o'clock after eating, because you have to eat with it, right? You know, he's starting to get loopy and drowsy, and, you know, and because of that, they could document that he wasn't, you know, doing as well as either, or they manipulated his files to keep him, as his sister, conspiring with the social workers there at that temporary care ward, put in a request to transfer his mail without his knowledge, without my knowledge, and then once she got the credit card statement, that was it. That's how she contacted the bank. Then she accused me of stealing money, which is bullshit, because he lived with me for 23 years. And, you know, we had this house, and, you know, Joan had just died in the last year, and yada-yada-yada, but that was the ruse to put an account on lockdown, as she got the bank to start signing her over as power of attorney, general power of attorney, and enduring a power of attorney, as the bank was withholding the power of attorney that I held for 25 years with Uncle John in my name, and the power of attorney. They withheld that information from me, wouldn't give it to me, and told me to take him to court with a lawyer. But of course, I'm a poor woman, and that's why they did it, because they knew I couldn't afford to go get a lawyer, and no legal aid was going to help me with a lawyer, right? And any, you know, those student lawyer referral centers where you might get appointed a student lawyer to help you do something really small. I mean, that would, right? The pro bono didn't work, because pro bono, as soon as I walked in, the guy had a bad attitude and was just funky and played games and wasn't going to represent what I was fighting for, to try and get Uncle John back first before he died, right? Okay, either or, the point is this company, which has been around for as long as my kids have been born, maybe they changed their name, I don't know, but either or, here's the email I got from them just a little while ago. Thank you for your phone call regarding, now remember, Uncle John he got sick in January of 2015, and by February 23rd, that's when they drugged him up, put him in a hammock, because he's passed out now, right? And then transported him into Eleanor's van. Don't ask me how they did that one with him all passed out in a hammock, but they did that. She jumped on the ferry, took the ferry across from the mainland to the island, and as they were coming onto the island and the ferry was docking, I guess because he was in the bowels of the ferry, right? You know, it can get pretty noisy when you're docking at the port, right? On the island, eh? So he started to wake up, and once he realized what the hell was going on, you know, he started freaking out. So they rushed him to the emergency department at the Victoria General in Victoria, and then tried to blame me by saying, look how we found him, because he was like on his death row by that time through the where's the kid, right? Because he didn't want to be where he was. So of course they drugged him to silence him, and then they just proceeded to get down and dirty to steal that inheritance that Eleanor Gilding never told John about. She withheld it from him for 14 months. Yeah, they were dropping a few little clues when he was at that temporary care ward, but not enough for him to tell me anything solidly. Just enough to make him... But again, they were doping him up to control how much he said in terms of if he's real awake, he might say too much, right? And if we give him too much information before we can ship him to Victoria, he might say too much. So that's why I put it at 14 months. It was over there when he had to start signing things to transfer the enduring power of attorney, the power of attorney. Okay, so we know that the province of British Columbia, Canada, covered that all up, right? We know that Fraser Health Authority, which is an employee to the province of British Columbia, Canada, covered that all up. We know that CIBC Bank was on that path to cover it up because, I filed, they were going to have their little, and I just didn't bother because I'd already seen what happened with Fraser Health Authority. I already came into contact with several corrupt judges that kept passing the buck. I think it was Judge Savage in December of 2017 tried to throw it out of court. I think that's how he did it, by saying that John was already dead and that I had no right to represent him, even though by that time I already had the enduring power of attorney because I got a copy from it from a good bank manager from CIBC Bank, right, prior to going to that, right? And I handed it over to him. He looked at it. He seen I had enduring power of attorney. That was 2 separate power of attorneys. The enduring one I had since 2009, which was, or whatever it was, 25 years anyway that I had it for. And he just said, no, Mr. Duncan died in December 2017. It was before court. So how did that happen? Because I remember him saying John had died. And I'm like, no, he didn't. And he said, yes, he did. Or something. And that's how he threw it out of court. All right, so that was in December of 2017. So we've got a judge falsifying records. And he wasn't the first one to falsify a record. Even Judge Ross, the last time when I took the province to court for what happened to ShaMay, the whole family, gang stalking, Uncle John, Amari, Andre, with the illegal apprehension, the murder of ShaMay and the cover-up and the luring, okay, all of it. The government acted like it was insignificant. They threw us all out of court by saying either time limitation and Judge Ross, through his order, like through his judgment, he skewed certain things, right, to be misleading, so that if anyone coming in just reading it and not knowing the story would take it for face value and wouldn't correct the mistakes to be able to connect the dots, right? So of course I worked on the appeal. I wrote it out. Rhea came, smash and grab Rhea, switched everything up. Now I know why she switches everything up, because that's what she likes to do. So right, and then I asked her to come to court with me and help me file it properly, because hold on a minute. Okay, as I was saying, there's been so much construction out there that it's really hard for, like, grocery stores to be delivering your groceries to you. Yesterday, somebody ran off with a $400 order from me, from Canadian Superstore. When I phoned up Canadian Superstore hours later, I said, well, where's my delivery? Oh, well, they left at 2 o'clock. I'm like, yeah, but now it's 6 o'clock. They haven't shown up with it. What? No. Apparently, they canceled it, but they never even went back to the store with it, so they figured they stole all of it. They stole everything. $400 order, yeah. So they had to send me another one today, because I didn't want to have to redo everything, right? So anyway, that's what that was. It was delivery. And then they forgot my free gift. So now they have to drop me off my free gift, which is like 3 little, I don't know. I don't know if they're frozen or not, but there's like 3 pizzas. So Andre likes them, and they're okay. I don't mind them. It's free, right? So it's worth, okay. So anyway, the smash and grab Rhea. After she rewrote everything that I wrote to suit however she wanted to write it, I just went with the flow. I asked her, I said, well, can you come to the courthouse with me downtown in the next little while and file it, because it was going into the appeals court in front of 3 judges. And I had to put them into 3 different envelopes, well, not little file folders, 3 green and 3 yellow, and I had to break them up. And you have to have these curly things on them, right? And then, of course, 1 for myself. So I would have had to had for the Attorney General and Public Attorney General, Public Attorney General and Solicitor something. Okay, anyway, I would have had to do 5 of them. 3 for the 3 appeal lawyers, 1 for the government, 1 for me. And I don't know, she just didn't bother. And then, of course, things just fell to the wayside. And I haven't heard anything since. And that was in 2022. That's what they did with CIBC Bank. They just dropped the ball. I never got anything in the mail to say that it's been thrown out of court, or this, or that, or anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Same thing with the province. Got absolutely nothing. What I get is gang stalked from the city of Surrey on a regular consecutive basis, right? As I'm being forced to live in a war zone with all this booming, banging, and grinding, and mud in the air, and dust, and grit, and cement, and just millions of people, and walking up, and now they're tearing up the road and digging in new pipes, and booming and banging, and as I'm facing homelessness. And if it's not the city of Surrey coming by every couple, 2-3 years, which is being instigated by other people for nefarious reasons, right? And that's not what I'm talking about here in terms of, I don't want to harp on it. It shows a pattern in terms of that gang stalking. And then you combine that with MCFD, Ministry of Children and Family Development, with their protection crap that's been going on ever since I got Andre back in 2014. And that's a regular ongoing, and then it just really kind of kept up with Amari, right? So, you know, we can't be surprised that I'm being locked out of this. We just can't. Same thing with CIBC Bank. Because, you know, it's just... So, okay, so that's what that's about. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to read you my response to this dude, because I don't know what else to do here, people. It goes, "Hello, Judy. Thank you for your phone call regarding your plan. We are extremely sorry to learn of the death of Bernard John Duncan and your daughter, ShaMay Chorney. Please accept our deepest sympathy. Please provide a copy of Bernard John Duncan's death certificate to remove his name from the plan. Once we have removed his name from the plan, we can send you an accumulated income payment application to withdraw the remaining funds, which is calculated out to be about $1,300, while whatever was put in there through federal grants, right, goes back to the federal government. So what Fraser Health Authority did, what CIBC Bank did, What the government of British Columbia did is actually withholding funds from the federal government, because that money needs to go back to the federal government so I can get my $1,300 that John and I put in. And then when they took them and they did what they did, when they made it where, they were accusing me of this, that, da-da-da, because, they were going to steal his inheritance, but they had to get rid of me first, right, in order to do that. That's why they locked me out. Because the withdrawals were coming automatically out of his account, but as soon as they started accusing me of this, that, and then I could get printouts, I could deposit, I could go to the teller, discuss it. I just couldn't do withdrawals. I didn't even attempt to use my card to pay for things because clearly it was all funky. So I just thought to protect the trust fund, because I didn't know what the hell was going on, okay? I just phoned up the company and I said, just stop the withdrawals for now, because, Mr. Duncan got, he's disappeared, right? He's lost in the medical system. And I'm being told to go get a lawyer, and nobody's giving me the enduring power of attorney so I can act as a power of attorney in any kind of capacity. So no deposits were coming out from that point forward, from the time they medically kidnapped him. So that was 10 years ago, people. 10 years ago. And this is why I didn't deal with this, because I tried to deal with it in the past. And it required John's signature. And then I just let it slide, because even if I go to a provincial court, it's not going to be enough, because they want a death certificate of John. And the only person that can provide that, I would think at this point, would be Eleanor Gilding. So I'd have to take her to court. Literally, I'd have to take her to court. And if I'm taking her to court, which, she needs to go to jail, in my opinion, right? I need to think about taking back the government to court and bringing up all those lawsuits that I just talked about to the surface, accuse the government of negligence by not dealing with the problems as they're coming into their courthouses, right? And instead of trying to cover up heinous crimes that injure families and put them at risk to murder, harm and injury, whatever, and then face homelessness because of the housing market and the corruption within the housing market. I mean, that $1,300 could be enough money for me to pay something around here or whatever, I'm just saying. Okay, so, all right. If you have any questions, please contact our customer experience department. Yeah, right. Toll free. Okay, regards. Okay, so then I answered him. This is what I said. And this is CST Savings. They've been around for years. All right? And then I answered this. Mr. Duncan, I'm not ashamed to say this, because this is what happened to him, people. It's the government of British Columbia, Canada, currently the New Democratic Party. When Gordon Campbell was in power, it was the BC Liberal government that tried to cover it up. I thought that maybe under the New Democrat Party it would be different, but it's not. They're just as bad. Mr. Duncan was medically kidnapped by Fraser Health Authority, CIBC Bank, and John's estranged sister. Under legislation, estranged is a key word to which the province of British Columbia, Canada, again, ignored. Okay? There's a reason why we have that word, estranged. Anyway, estranged sister, Eleanor Gilding, in January of 2015. Okay? Mr. Duncan was medically kidnapped by Fraser Health Authority, CIBC Bank, and John's estranged sister, Eleanor Gilding, in January of 2015. And he died in January 2018 after his inheritance was robbed from him by his sister and her affiliates who helped her to do that to Mr. Duncan. I cannot provide a death certificate for him. I just can't. It's impossible. Then he emails me back and he says, "Hi, Judy. I'm sorry to hear that, but unfortunately, we are unable to proceed with your request without removing him from the plan. We will need any legal proof that Bernard John Duncan passed away." How am I supposed to get legal proof outside of a court of law? Okay? And pulling up an obituary online is not legal proof. They want something from a court. Okay? And being that I've already been to court several times, been in front of several judges who have falsified their transcripts, tweaked their judgments in favor of a corrupt government versus for victims to get justice, right? There's, I'm looking at everything that I'm trying to think that I could pull out of my lawsuits that can prove that John died in January. And there isn't anything because the government covered it up. Not once, not twice, but like 3 times. When Judge Savage threw it out of court in December of 2017 by saying that John was dead and therefore I didn't have the right to represent him in any capacity because he had died. That was a falsified transcript. Okay, that was a falsified fraud judgment, right? And then with the government to ignore it in 2022 or whenever it was, when I took the actual ministry of the province within the Attorney General and Solicitor Attorney General, 2, but only 1 dealt with me. Well, the other one, I don't know what happened to that one either. It just faded off into the wander. Like kind of makes you wonder if these courthouses are even legitimate. Serious. They ignored it too. They didn't care if maybe even somebody in their financial department didn't go back into John's superannuation life insurance policy and falsified those records so that Eleanor Gilding, being that she's a thief on a corporate level, could actually receive hundreds of thousands of dollars extra in the name of her brother, her estranged one at that, Mr. Bernard John Duncan, for a superannuation life insurance policy that didn't exist until it was falsified in the records. Being that she's a long-term public union sector employee and can manipulate people within the government public union sector to do her biddings for her so that she could commit heinous crimes. I asked the government specifically to investigate to see if there was a payout of a superannuation life insurance policy in John's name to any of those people in Victoria with the name Duncan or, family, immediate. No, they weren't the immediate. They were the extended family. So, because if they did receive one in his name, it was falsified because he never renewed his policy after he turned 65. He let it go because he knew his family would come looking for it and try and do something as stupid as they did to get it. And they did it. He was right. But that's not to say that they didn't falsify the records, being that they were committing fraud from the very get-go the minute he showed up at the Surrey Memorial Hospital. And I phoned his family and let him know that he was there. And boy, oh boy, Eleanor Gilding got up on that phone, started talking to that social worker. So when I went the next day to go see John, and she says, "Oh, well, I need to know this, this, and this, and this because John's going somewhere else." And I'm like, hold on, what's wrong with him? I don't even know what's wrong with him. How can you say he's going someplace when we don't even know what's wrong with him? Well, he is. That's because because Eleanor jumped on it real freaking fast because she was sitting on a life insurance policy that she didn't tell him about. And she was plotting and scheming how to steal it, and she did. She got away with it, and she's the one holding the death certificate. Well, CIBC Bank is just playing mums on it with Andre's little trust account, hoping that it will go dormant so they can close it. So now I need to get up on the phone and phone up CIBC Bank and say, okay, I want whatever you got in terms of freaking, I want the paperwork where my signature, if it's John's signature and it's my signature, I want that paperwork where I can see it for myself in black and white, and I need a copy of it. Otherwise, did you close it? And if you did, how did you do it? Because somewhere in my paperwork, I have proof that I put $5 in there to keep it open. Because as far as I'm concerned, you guys are nothing but freaking scandalous, right? At that particular bank. And if one bank is doing it, you know a whole lot of other freaking banks are doing it, because the lawyer that was representing that bank was trying to cover it up just as hard as Fraser Health Authority covered up what they did, as the government is protecting not only Fraser Health Authority, but they also trying to protect CIBC Bank as well as their own negligence. And then I wrote, Mr. Duncan was medically kidnapped by Fraser Health Authority. Oh, read that. Where's the next email? Here it is. So he tells me that he can't do nothing unless I get legal proof. If I take it to provincial court, the provincial judge is not going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because who am I taking to court? Eleanor Gilding? Yeah, okay. So what, she can come in with her dirty money and have her little gang stalkers start stalking me even more, and she'll have so-and-so start retaliating and doing something over here, right? You know, because she got money, right? She's got John's money, right? You know, so she can pay. She can pay her hoodlums. That's what she does. That's what she did when she stole John and his money. Like, who drugs up their brother and puts him in a hammock and then wheels that hammock on a gurney as he's passed out and stuffs him into her van so she can go on a ferry and leave him sleep at the bottom of the ferry in the car bay, right? You know, where the cars are all parked. Well, she's upstairs drinking freaking coffee or tea and eating a muffin, and then what? Get back up into the car and drive off the ramp, and because it's all, it woke him up, and then he starts, and then what? She gonna run to the hospital? She probably wanted him to run to the hospital, because then she had an excuse to house him for free at the taxpayers' expense, so that she could play the victim with her brother as she was wheeling and dealing in the back rooms, paying off even more bribes, including bribes with CIBC Bank and any other healthcare worker within the province of British Columbia, Canada, to cover up her crimes. I'm going to take her to court. Yeah, I don't think so. She needs to go to jail. That's the whole point of all these lawsuits, people. Justice. If I try to file another lawsuit, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind, and it's not that I'm quote-unquote looking for money, it's the fact that I'm trying to bring the brightest light that I could possibly put on it. Give me my $10 million. Will that make you stop and think and want to look and say, holy crumbs, something serious is here, right? We need to really analyze it, investigate it, and deal with the problem, okay? That's where the lawsuit, the precedence, it's put the brightest light on it to bring the most attention, to put the crooks in freaking jail, to clean up our corporations, to protect the most vulnerable in our society. I don't care if they're little 2-year-old kids, babies coming out of vaginas, and after the healthcare system throws the mother away for 5 days in a row and likes to blame the mother for 12 hours of labor, even though she's been in labor for 5 days already. That's 6 days of labor, and then say, oh, well, you're the one that made him come out like this. No, more like you guys made him come out like that, right? You know what I'm saying? When it comes to Amari, just the whole 9 yards. If I try to file another lawsuit, because I don't know what else to do. I have to put the brightest light on this and bring everything back up to the surface no matter where I go. Uncle John always seems to come with me, right? Because he hasn't gotten justice yet, people. He just hasn't. Against Fraser Health Authority, or against CIBC Bank, or against the BC provincial government. This is what I wrote, a professional with a trust company for trust funds for kids to go to freaking college. That was set up a long time ago, when ShaMay was a baby. And we had to borrow money on that. When I was illegally removed off of welfare for 6 freaking years as I was doing foster care parenting for a child for the Ministry of Children and Family Development without pay, no welfare check, nothing. And when I did go back and say, well, gee, I'm doing this, and, and blah, and, well, you still have these little trust funds. You need to start cashing them in before you qualify for welfare. So, yeah, John and I, we borrowed money on it. That's why it was so low. And we were starting to pay it back slowly but surely. But when this shit happened, I had to cut it off. I just said, to hell with it. You want to accuse me of this, that, whatever? Like, you're not going to hold this against me. You're not going to hold this against, because my name, right? You're not going to hold this against me. Well, now I can hold it against them. Right? Right? And you see, even if I would have left it and let those deposits be taken out until the moment when John's account was closed by that crooked witch and that corrupt bank, after the money was transferred into his account when it came to that inheritance, and then they wanted to liquidate the account and close it. Like, is there even a John Duncan having an account anymore at Canadian CIBC Bank? Or did they close his account and just look at it and, like, there's got to be an account open there with me needing his signature. Was Eleanor successful at closing John's account after she stole his money and locked him up like a dirty secret to hide the dirt, even though she could never get rid of Andre and his little account? So I need official paperwork around that, because I'm going to court one way or another. I have to. What? Just turn my back and do an Eleanor Gilding and pretend that Andre doesn't exist and Amari doesn't exist and the rest of John's immediate family doesn't exist? Right? You got to be a pretty soulless Catholic to do what she did to John and everybody else who loved him. But if you notice, the shit's haunting her. It's still haunting her. It's not haunting me, right? I kind of find it amusing, actually, because it's proof in the pudding. It's proof in the pudding. This is where the government needs to investigate. There's more proof. 10 years, proof. Do your job. You're a government. You're supposed to protect the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable, the elderly, the children. Right? You know what I'm saying? The teens. Abused people. People who are falsely accused of things and prosecuted of falsely. Right? And make a wrong right. That's why we take things to court, to make a wrong right. Well, the court has yet to make it right. If I try to file another lawsuit against Fraser Health Authority, you can forget that one. They're not going to pop off Uncle John's death certificate. Or against CIBC Bank. What? Do they have John's death certificate on file with his account still open because of Andre? Is that where I get a copy from? Sure. Okay. Or against the province, the BC provincial government? Well, maybe if the BC provincial government would have done their job in 2022, this wouldn't be a problem. in any kind of capacity, right? All three corporations will use their lawyers to have what happened to Mr. Duncan thrown out of court. BC is a very corrupt province. And I left it at that. I don't think he emailed me back because there's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do. And I'll be damned if I'm going to take Eleanor Gilding to court when she needs to go to jail. She needs to be investigated, and she needs to go to fucking court and be prosecuted, and she needs to go to jail. So why the hell would I take her to court? No, that's the government's responsibility to investigate her, do an internal investigation to see how deep her corrupt fingers got into John's personal financial affairs. And if she got a superannuation life insurance policy in his name after it was canceled when he aged out at 65, but she managed to tweak the freaking internal files through her bribe because she used the money that John inherited to pay off freaking scoundrels to do her dirty work for her just so that she could walk off with another $500,000, pocket it, and act like some rich bitch in the freaking community. Yeah, okay. No, the government needs to flush that shit out and people like her and put them in damn jail. There's your good fight. That requires a lawsuit to put the brightest light on it. The only problem is I don't know how to write them right properly. I just don't. But that doesn't stop me from trying. And when they ask me what you want in terms of, like, you know, things back, I mean, what we wanted for Uncle John was to be able to go see him without people spying on us. You know, that was the first thing. And to get him home. That was on the top. And then if while we're at it, you might as well pop in $10 million so that you'll pay attention to what we're asking for here and obviously investigate what the hell was going on. But that's not what it was about. It was about paying off a senior worker, giving her what she want so that they could continue to target old people for their assets, whether they owned houses or whether they had pension plans or gold bullions or whatever, so that they could snatch up on those assets, use them to prop up their old folks' homes as they started laundering this shit into this condo scheme that apparently is bankrupting tens of thousands of people in the province of British Columbia, Canada, because they're all losing money because a lot of these condos are sitting empty. And not only are they sitting empty, but with the cost of living going up, whatever they thought they were going to get after it was all said and done and those things were built and ready to go up on the market to be rented out as investment properties or to sell or whatever, they're losing like $100,000 on their sale price. So, you know, in terms of what they invested, right? And on top of what they can't sell it at what they thought that they could sell it at. And they've lost money on what they initially, okay? And then if they want to rent, you know, they'd have to rent it at $4,000 a month in order just to break even. But because nobody wants them, they're dropping the rent down to $2,300. And these people that own these suites are having to pay anywhere between $700 to $1,500 a month extra just to be able to keep the property. And like they're literally pulling their hairs out. And some are going bankrupt, and some are, I don't know. I just know that it's a big problem for David Eby. He's on YouTube as people are talking about how his housing initiative is all falling apart because of the corruption. Yeah. That's not to say that they're still building, because they are, right? Because, you know, dead bodies bring in big bucks. You got to hide that money somewhere. So what's the best place to hide it in? Into a corrupt housing market. Yeah. Because people are still dying, still disappearing out here, still being gang stalked to one capacity or another. So I just wanted to say that. I'm not going to harp on this because I think my first step is to phone up CIBC Bank get some official paperwork around that where specifically, whatever, they can't. But CIBC Bank is so crooked. They will do anything and everything to hide the truth. That's what I learned about them. Yeah, they're not going to give it to me. I'd be and what little they're going to give me is going to be, it's going to be very shady. I can see it already. Because when they kicked me out of my card and how they did it. And they made me sign to get a new card, but the bitch took my card and kicked out John's card instead of my card so they could remove me so I couldn't use the card anymore to see where money was being spent in John's account after a year and a half of him being gone. Yeah, they never legally ever removed me as enduring power of attorney or power of attorney on his account. Never. So if there's any account on there, technically, I still have enduring power of attorney and power of attorney because I've never been legally removed from it. I've never gotten anything official. And what little stupid shit that Eleanor Gilding sent me was not official. There was nothing official about it. What it did is it proved that she committed mail fraud and a whole lot of other fraud along the way. And she's one professional thief that needs to be investigated and then sent to jail. And whatever she got in terms of anything that she stole from John should be taken away from her. Yeah. And anyone else that helped her to do it. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of know what my instincts are telling me. Do I expect to win? No. If I had to do it, well, I have to. It's either let it go, c'est la vie, and it just goes into nothing. Both of them. Both trust accounts. Or I take it to the Supreme Court and bring in all the other lawsuits as proof that I've been trying to deal with this problem for years. Because I have been. But the courts keep ignoring it. The judges keep covering it up. The province is helping the judges to cover it up. It's come full circle again after 10 years. And it's the government's responsibility to clean it up. Otherwise, they're condoning theft from the federal government in terms of that money. Well, no, I suppose if I just let it go and that policy canceled itself out, I think it's good until 2032. I won't even be around by that time, right? So it'll cancel out. So any money that's in there that belongs to my family will go into a greater gene pool. This like extortion, right? Where it's distributed to all the other policies that are existing. And then that's when I think the federal government, in terms of whatever they invested back in the day when ShaMay was a baby, will be returned back to the federal government. But you'd have to wait until 2032 for that to happen. And I'd be probably dead by then. Well, maybe not. It's only 25. I might still be alive. That's only 7 years from now. I could be still alive. Either or. It's going to cancel itself out. And then what? If it cancels out in 2032 and I'm alive, but there's still no John to sign, I'm right back at square one, where I am today. With CIBC Bank just keeping their dirty secret tucked nicely under the rug with their fake, funky BS, bullshit, honky-donk cover-up, telling Andre to kick rocks. Yeah. So, I say another lawsuit so I can bring everybody back together. Keep the family together. It's like Uncle John says, we stick together as a family. Yeah, we do. You never dealt with Sierra and what happened to her. You never dealt with ShaMay with what happened to her. You never dealt with what happened to Andre and what happened to him, being that we're talking about gang stalking here and the targeting of a vulnerable family. You sure the hell didn't deal with Uncle John, and you had multiple times to be able to do that, but you ignored it each and every time through your various lawyers and judges and public union sector employees. You don't care what the bank does, clearly. I mean, it's obviously a rogue bank to which you don't give a damn. So if you don't care about what happened to our family, why would you care about what's happening to any other individual in the province of British Columbia, Canada, when it comes to corrupt banks? You're just putting everybody else at risk to corrupt banks taking advantage of them, right? That's what governments are there for. They're to protect the people from corporate corruption. Doesn't matter if it's coming from a health authority, a banking system, a freaking policing system, or even a justice system for that matter. Yeah. That's what when I say lawless society, we do. We live in a lawless society. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So what I need to do is gather up some information from both corporations. They need to send me a letter in the mail, this guy that I just read, this person, to put it in writing and put it in the mail for me. I want it postage stamped. So with federal government on strike, with rolling strikes, it might be a good idea to deal with that in a month or two, hopefully when the mail gets back on track. Otherwise, it might get stuck in the mail or maybe lost in the mail. And then, of course, I'm going to have to contact CIBC Bank, which I'm going to do, like, very soon, and demand, I want the original, wherever my signature is, I have a right to have the copy of it. I want a copy of it. And I want to know what the status of that plan is, that little trust fund. And because if I say, well, I want to cash it in, they will have an easy way to do it to hide what they did with John. But I'm not going to let them do it that way. No way. They're not going to get off the hook that easy with this. What they did is they were an instrument to premeditated murder. Premeditated murder means you think about it, 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 and then you act on it. After you have a plan, and then you implement the plan. Sometimes the plans are quick and fast and easy. Sometimes they take a little while to execute. John's took a little while to execute, to get the end result, so that Eleanor's sitting on a nice little nest egg. And anybody else that she gave John's money to, for whatever reason, benefited from it as well. Just so that she could sit on a nest egg. Because I'm sure she got her share.